One of my favorite books in the Bible is the book of Habakkuk, and it's just a short one. It's 3 chapters, and it's incredibly powerful. When I first started to sort of believe in God and follow him, I didn't grow up with it. I got this idea very quickly given to me that if I had questions, I was meant to keep them to myself. That faith meant that you follow God, that he's going to call you to do things, to go places, but you just go. You don't ask questions, you just roll with it. You do the things that God is calling you to do. But the book of Habakkuk is very different, and one of the reasons I love it is it speaks directly into how we're invited to relate to God. See, Habakkuk, the main character of this book, he has questions, and he doesn't just keep them to himself. In fact, he brings them directly to God. Check it out. In chapter 1, in verse 2, it kicks off straight away. How long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Violence is everywhere I cry, but you do not come to save. Must I forever see these evil deeds? Why must I watch all this misery? Wherever I look, I see destruction and violence. I am surrounded by your people who love to argue and fight. The law has become paralyzed. There is no justice in the courts. The wicked far outnumber the righteous, so that justice has become perverted. That's how the book starts. Habakkuk brings his hurt and his pain and his anger, and he brings it straight to God and he questions him. But then in the next few verses, God then replies. It goes in verse 5, the Lord replied, look around at the nations, look and be amazed, for I am doing something in your own day, something you wouldn't believe even if someone told you about it. And then God just keeps on outlaying the things that he's doing. But this answer that God gives to Habakkuk's original question of where are you, God, it doesn't sit well with Habakkuk. So in verse 12, Habakkuk again fights back with God and he says, oh God, my Lord, my Holy One, you who are eternal, surely you do not plan to wipe us out, because that's kind of what it made it sound like in God's previous statement. O Lord, our rock, you have sent these Babylonians to correct us, to punish us for our many sins, but you are pure and cannot stand the sight of evil. Will you wink at their treachery? Habakkuk hears God's reasonings and God's explanation of what he's going to do, and it doesn't sit well with him. So Habakkuk does the beautifully human thing and asks the question of God, why? Why are you doing this? It doesn't make sense. Because God said he's going to raise up a nation called the Babylonians, and they were going to come and essentially wipe them out. Now, if you're sitting there asking the question, why is everything around us going wrong? God's solution to that problem doesn't sound great. So Habakkuk questions, and God then replies again. He says, the Lord said to me, write my answer plainly on tablets so that a runner can carry the correct message for others to see. The vision is for a future time. It describes the end and it will be fulfilled. And then down in verse 4 it says, look at the proud. They trust in themselves and their lives are crooked, but the righteous will live by their faithfulness to God. And this just sounds like that classic response in Christianity, right? That if I don't understand what's going on around me, I must just close my eyes and blindly follow. That's what it sounds like. But the thing about the book of Habakkuk is it encourages a dialogue with God. And that statement that God makes in chapter 2, verse 4, that the people who follow God will live by their faith, trusting in something they cannot see, that's true. But it doesn't negate the fact that we feel frustrated and hurt and anger. All those things are natural human emotions, and we're invited not to bottle them up, but bring them to God, express them to him, share them with him, and God hears. And God paints this incredible picture of what he's going to do. And in chapter 3, something happens for Habakkuk in the dialogue that he's had between God. And he writes down this beautiful response in chapter 3. And he writes down of how God is going to move and do things. And I'll read it in a second. But sometimes that's the thing. Just getting your thoughts off your chest and expressing them can help bring clarity. One of the most damaging things that we can do as humans is to bottle up our emotions and the things that we feel and the things we struggle with. What the book of Habakkuk shows us is we're actually encouraged to wrestle with those things and bring them to God. And sometimes it's in that bringing that things become clear and you can process. And that's an incredible thing. And Habakkuk, something happens to him along the way because he gets it. He says in chapter 3, he paints this incredible picture. I've heard all about you, Lord. I am filled with awe by your amazing works. In our time of deep need, help us again, as you did in years gone by. I see God moving around the deserts from Edom, the Holy One from Mount Paran. His brilliant splendor fills the heavens and the earth is filled with his praise. His coming is as brilliant as the sunrise, rays of light flashing from his hand where his awesome power is hidden. Pestilence march before him, plague follows close behind. When he stops, the earth shakes. When he looks, the nations tremble. He shatters the everlasting mountains and the levels of the eternal hills. He is the eternal one. It keeps going and painting this incredible imagery that to the original audience would have meant something huge. See, the imagery, and if you read Habakkuk chapter 3 on your own, which I encourage you to do, you'll see it. They're painting a war metaphor. They're painting a picture of a battle that's taking place where God is marching into battle for them. That first he rides across the heavens and then he comes to earth, and when he stops and lands on earth, the earth shakes and everything around him trembles because the God of the universe is here, that he is in the battle, that he's joined in, that he's fighting and he's moving. And it paints this scene as a normal battle is going on, where one side is here, the other side is here, and it's like those old movies, those old battle movies, the war ones that you see where they run from one side to another, ultimately coming into the middle and clashing and fighting. When you're in that moment and you're on the front line of one of those two armies approaching the other, all you see is the thing that you're facing across from you. You see the other army coming towards you. You see that thing that's going on in your life. That's all you can see. But the imagery that Habakkuk paints in chapter 3 of his book is an image of while you are running towards your battle, God is there too. And when you can't see him, you're invited to trust that he is making his way through, that he is coming, that he brings with him all of the defense that you need. He's coming, he's there. Have faith, hold it together enough that God can come, that he's just around the corner. Don't give up because God is here. He's moving. He has arrived. The earth is shaking because his presence is here. You are not on your own. God is with you. And it's an old metaphor of a battle that's not particularly relevant to us in 2020, but the transferable principle is the same. That sometimes the things that we face, all we can see is that thing that's in front of us, and it's hard to remember that God's actually there or that he's on his way. But we are invited to trust that God is there, that he's doing something. And like he said, right, earlier on in the text, I am doing something that you wouldn't believe even if I told you. God is moving and shaping things. And wherever you find yourself, it's my hope that you see that God is moving and doing things. And if he told you, you probably wouldn't believe it. So trust that he's coming and he's doing something far beyond what we can imagine. You are not on your own. I am not on my own, for God is with us. He's here. And I hope that brings you hope and comfort. And until we talk again, stay safe, hold hope, and we'll talk soon.